of the National Evaluation Center. The center itself is based at the Galter Health Sciences Library at Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine in Chicago. Dr. Hoyo is joining us remotely from California. She received her MA and PhD in political science with a primary focus in comparative politics from the University of California at San Diego. And she brings extensive experience and expertise in applying comparative analysis to national evaluation initiatives. So she's perfect for this position. I want to thank you, Dr. Hoyo, for taking time to be with us today and just tell us more about the National Evaluation Center.
Hi, everyone. First of all, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to come and chat with you today. I am relatively new to the NNLM. It's already been my 5th month in this position, but I'm loving it. I won't lie to you. This is a fantastic group of people. I get to work with the best team ever. So Galter for the win, I have to say. And I am very, very happy to be here. I want to learn more about you too. I want to figure out ways for us to engage and collaborate. And I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from each other. And so I'm very, very grateful for this chance to talk to you about what NEC does, how we think about evaluation, what are the what's the mission of our center, and how we approach evaluation given those values and the mission that we have. And again, I really want to have this be interactive and dynamic because I want to hear from you. And you'll see one of the take-home points that I have in my presentation for you is that I think librarians do a lot of evaluation. Maybe you don't call it evaluation per se, but you and I have a lot of things that will be very familiar to you. We have a lot of things in common, and I think that that's where the strength for future collaboration resides on finding those common points and figuring out how to leverage this synergy that we have by virtue of doing what we love to do. So is it okay if I share my slides? May I? I'll start sharing in a second.
Please.
Can you see my slides now?
Yes, I do.
Great. So I have a little bit of a roadmap here. So, and this is what I was thinking of talking to you about. I'm going to tell you who we are, what our aims are. Like I said, we feel very much, and thank you, Francis, for the lovely introduction, but we feel very much that everything we do has to be imbued in the mission and the values that we hold true for NNLM, NLM, and NEC. So you'll see a lot of common threads and a lot of connections and intertwining between these things. Francis, so we'll talk about aims, values, then I'll tell you a little bit about what is evaluation, and I will show you specific points of what NEC in action looks like. What are the focus areas that we are concentrated on right now. I'll share a couple of examples of the active work that we do for the network on a day-to-day basis. And I have a few discussion questions, maybe to start giving that that push that sometimes we need to engage in a more comfortable and open communication. So I want to stress this. I really want to hear from you and learn from you. So feel free to ask me to stop or clarify or anything. I do know that I speak very fast. So please don't hesitate to interrupt me and tell me to go over something that I say. It's a character flaw. I keep on trying to be better at speaking slower, but I think my personality just doesn't allow me to. So please feel free to interrupt. And so NEC, like Francis said, is part of the NNLM. We're part of the NNLM is a network of the National Library of Medicine. And we were created as a standalone center in 2021 with the mandate to set the tone and guide rigorous evaluation across the NNLM, to focus on national initiatives and the performance of the network as in the national context, right? To identify and facilitate and establish common metrics, tooling, infrastructure, workflows, these type of things, to implement, in a sense, standard processes for review and change. We are trying to gather data in a more systematic and standard way as well. So we have a lot of data sources across the network that at times seem to be disparate or do not seem to work together in unison. And that's part of our mission, to create all these instances of connections and to improve data quality. What I'm telling you is traditionally what evaluators do. So evaluators are always concerned of getting the right statistics for the right time and the right metrics for the type of work that you're doing. I think in general, you will see that evaluation is a very dynamic world, which is what attracts me to it. And it's dynamic because context is determinant of what's going to happen. So you'll see that this is the approach that we have overall. But let me start first by showing you who we are. So this is the team. This is who composes the NEC, and I am honored and privileged to work with this 15 plus individuals that you see in this slide. All of these individuals that you see here bring a wealth of multidisciplinary expertise, which I think enriches and strengthens our approach to evaluation. You will never hear NEC believe that there's only one way to approach a problem. What we like to think of NEC is that together we find better solutions to issues, and that everyone involved in the process has a say and a voice in how we're perceiving. We definitely believe in the value of team science and diversity. Like many other evaluation consortia that exist across the nation, our team is very, again, dynamic, innovative, and adaptive. So there's only 2 people at NEC who are currently 100% or full-time workers. I think that this is one of our strengths, but I am making it a point to tell you that our team is geared to a lot of cross-training, a lot of project by project creation of specifically minded groups to attend to the problem. I think, again, that this very dynamic, very mobile, very versatile way of engaging in evaluation is one of our strengths. This is also why you see that I am in a remote position, and some of the people here attending today are very aware that this is how the NNLM works. To me, it was also a fantastic discovery. I had before been traditionally in an office where we all were together in a very strict and direct contact. And I think that the NNLM has, even before the pandemic, the NNLM is used to working in these hybrid environments. And I think that's also another thing that distinguishes us from other national consortia and makes us incredibly nimble. And this works very well in terms of evaluation. So what are the 4 aims? So why were we created? So we were created to bring, to help advance the mission of the NNLM, which is advance the progress of medicine and improve public health access to information, right? Providing US health professionals with equal access to biomedical information. So that's the core of NNLM work. That mission translated to these 4 areas of need. So NEC, like you heard me say at the beginning a little bit, we are supposed to identify the opportunities where we can create agile, dependable, consistent administration and infrastructure. This is essential for data quality, right? Like I said, having disparate systems is often a necessity. Not that there's no one data collection system that will suffice to do everything that you have to do, but we need to create those connections. We need to identify venues for communication amongst platforms and this type of things, and we need to streamline processes. So this is one of the first aims. Our second is to provide standards and support for evaluation and continuous improvement. What does that mean? That even when you've identified and streamlined a process, there's always room for improvement. There's never a perfect process. There's always opportunities to engage in learning and to improve upon whatever findings you had arrived in a prior decision-making point. So this is this part. Establishing standards, being consistent, you as librarians know the value of having shared taxonomies, ontologies, of having vocabularies. This is the type of work that we do. And the bottom left aim is one of my favorites. One of the strengths of the NNLM is the idea of community, the human aspect of it all. So job in here is to build community and to enhance network capacity, right? Figure out those connections, how to make it, how well we are reaching the people that we say we're reaching, right? How well we're true to our mission of improving access, equal access being the operative words here to biomedical information. And we want to do fair dissemination, accountability. So we are a part, but also a subject of, not subject, a reporting element to the NNLM. So the NNLM has to be able to hold us accountable to establishing all these standards and things that we have to do, right? We're a member, but we're also a functioning part of a larger network, and that's how we see ourselves. Like I told you, we've been already in existence for a year, and we've learned a couple of lessons, and I think it's always interesting to reflect on what you've learned after a little time of existence. And my colleagues at NEC tell me that one of the big lessons learned is that the culture of the NNLM is engages in certain particular ways that we perhaps weren't ready to, or we didn't know when we were looking at it from the outside. So we're learning how to engage and how to become partners to the regional medical libraries and the offices and centers across the network. We've looking for and understanding different approaches to people and processes. People are sometimes used to or set on their ways, and we need to understand those ways before we can actually start engaging in discussions on how to change those. And those lessons have also made it so that we've created and seen need for different types of expertise to be brought into the teams. So I'll go back briefly to tell you, but for instance, Mohammed Hosseini, who we see here, is a postdoc at Galter Library too, and he is recently joining the NEC because he's an expert on ethics, and we see this is a fantastic area for progress and improvement for the network. So we're bringing Dr. Hosseini to work on things like us. We have an expert on machine learning here who's also going to be joining. He hasn't started working officially on NEC projects, but we have ideas of where we can push the envelope with the network, and that's what we're doing. So again, the nimble character of our workforce allows us to provide expertise according to what we identify as new needs from the network. So this is part of what we're talking about. We also guide our work by the 5 core values that the steering committee at the NNLM has recently established. These values, as you can see here, trust, diversity, equity and inclusion, collaboration and partnership, flexibility and adaptability, transparency and communication. This is what we see are the mandates or the directives that we take from the NNLM. The NNLM wants us to be dependable so that the members of the NNLM can trust us, but also the communities that we serve can trust the NNLM. We embrace humility, and we believe and are committed to the values of accessibility, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like I said, that's part of the foundational mission of the NNLM, equal access to biomedical informatics and to the dissemination of biomedical information. I'm sorry. Collaboration and partnership happens within these 2 other realms that I just mentioned before. You have to be a partner, and you have to want to collaborate to gain trust and to promote DEI. And then you see that the last 2 are also things that you've already heard me talk about. The flexibility and adaptability is the network itself is striving to address change head on, right? And for that, in order to have an impact and change things, you need to be flexible and adaptable, because you never know what you're going to find, right? You need to address pressing needs, which are evolving in this world, and the pandemic has been a very good example of that. And you need to be committed to do so in an agile framework, which is what we do at NEC. And then we like our processes to be transparent and visible, right? We want honest dialogue, and that's what we engage in. An example of applying these core values to the NEC mission is in this idea of what metrics should be. So we endorse and we espouse we endorse the notion that metrics which are not shaped by our core values, and you see the quotation here, our metrics if our metrics are not shaped by our core values, our values will be distorted by our metrics. this is something that we preach and practice. So one of the things that we like to think about as a guiding light in terms of our own NEC values is this Humetrics initiative that creates and supports exactly this, right? Values enacted frameworks for understanding and evaluating any aspects of scholarly life. So I won't go through them, but you can see here that they resonate very clearly, and they're very directly tied to the NNLM values, perhaps with different words, but they're all part of the same modus operandi, let's say, of the network, of the same way of thinking about how to engage with others. We believe in equity, we believe in openness, collegiality, being respectful and generous with one another, feeling empathy for other scholars, for oneself, for the community, understanding that failure or mistakes happen, and that these are always going to happen, and that there are learning opportunities. That's a value that I particularly remind myself often of it during processes of continuous improvement. If anyone ever tells you that there's an evaluation that is perfect or the only one or the ideal, they are lying to you, and they're lying in the sense that that's not the point of evaluation. Evaluation can only be a little bit like survey methods. We are snapshots, right? We're just a single point in time. So at that time, that evaluation or that survey was particularly appropriate. But to say that one survey or one evaluation is going to be ever defining the policy, program, the initiative that you're addressing, that's a mistake in my view. And we can talk more about that later, because this is something that I feel passionately about. But you see, soundness, this we equate to quality. You need to be willing to push boundaries. We like to be methodologically very rigorous, and that's where the soundness part comes. But at the same time, we like to be boundary pushing, to be thinking about reproducibility, something that I know you know a lot about, and we like the idea of being actively engaged with and to value the engagement with the community, to become a community of practice, which is again why I'm delighted to talk to you, because I think that every forum like yours here allows me to think outside of my traditional way of approaching evaluation at the NNLM. So I love opportunities like this. But at the end, our work is driven by what the NNLM priorities and partnerships are. And this slide is just to show that we feel part of the 7 regions that constitute the NNLM. The NEC is clearly nested within Region 6. So I'm happy to see in the audience some Region 6 colleagues, because we're all part of the NNLM, and we do this together. So now let's go a little bit onto what is evaluation. I don't know if you personally feel like this, but evaluation is quite a loaded term. So often in our line of work at NEC, and anyone engaging in evaluation, when we say we are evaluators, we are met with fear, anxiety, and stress. People think that we're there to criticize, to judge. You see that in this word cloud, some of the words are often used: assessment, estimates, judgment, fix, perception, standards. So we do get some of these elements. When in reality, evaluation is just the systematic collection and analysis of information about characteristics or about outcomes or about anything related to programs, projects, and things. Why do we need evaluation? Yes, sometimes to make a judgment, to figure out if we need to improve the efficiency or effectiveness of the program, to inform decision-making about current or future programming. But at the end, I think that I would want to demystify the role of evaluation. Evaluators are not in opposition to the people doing the day-to-day outreach or the day-to-day work of the program and the initiative being evaluated. I think the more the evaluator works in unison and as a partner to the program and the people doing the day-to-day work, the better the quality of the evaluation and the better the program will be for it. So the take-home point here is that NEC brings or is committed to always bringing best practices, innovative approaches, and that we're always going to be, like, again, Francis correctly said in the introduction, we're very much driven by science-based and evidence-based approach to methodologically rigorous thinking. That's what we do. So I've said before, evaluation happens in all areas of work. Librarians are naturally inclined to engage in evaluation practice, if you don't mind me saying this. How and where do I see you engaging in evaluation every day? Well, librarians care about lots of data, and you perform lots of data collection processes, from user metrics to service performance to collection management. In reality, you're doing evaluation every single day as well. So we're colleagues more than you think. But perhaps for those of you who have not really thought of evaluation as being part of your daily job, which it is, let me tell you how and where we see evaluation being defined, or what are the type of best practices that we can think about when it comes to evaluation. So recently, one of my colleagues at NEC, Erika Martinez, did a very good presentation, or a micro training, to our NNLM friends and partners. And the purpose of this micro training was to say, what does evaluation focus on? How do you define what minimal elements should be included in any evaluation? So I'm completely stealing from her in here, or following her guidance, in the sense that I think that evaluation has two main objectives, and they can be summarized by, oh, I don't know what happened to the numbers. They're supposed to be 1 and 2, but so there's not 4 ones. There's 4 elements in this slide. I'm sorry about that. But the objectives are learning and decision making, right? So we do evaluation to learn something, and we see evaluation as contributing to data-driven decision making, right? So the first objective refers to gathering information. That's how we learn, to consider the merit, the worth, the impact of a program or a process, or anything that relates to a product or a service. And the second objective is to always in sequential order. So you'll first learn and then you decide. You cannot do this. Some people sometimes skip steps. We would suggest don't. First learn, first gather the data, and then analyze and do what the data is. It sounds obvious, but humans sometimes do, for the sake of expediency or simplicity, we do skip steps, right? We make assumptions about things that we don't actually have the data for. And that's where I'm coming here. Like, always do decision making after you've collected the data. And then how much decision making happens depends on who are the actors here, right? It depends on who's going to be your decision maker. Is it a policy maker? Is it a stakeholder? Is it program staff? Is it consumers or your community that you're serving? So that changes. So if we had to define the core elements of an evaluation, any evaluation, we would say that any evaluation must always consider these 2 things: the context in which it happens and the criteria which will be used to make any possible choices in the future. And the simple way to think about these things would be to focus on 3 very easy questions: the who, the what, and the how. The who is influenced or affected by whatever is under evaluation. In social sciences and in political science, we often describe this as actors. Think who the actors, who the agents, who the sponsors, the providers, the users, who is involved in any way, shape, or form with the program or the intervention that you want to evaluate. What is being evaluated, right? So what's the purpose of your evaluation? What do you want to get from it? What's the, in more methodological terms, what was your research question? Where's your objective? What are you trying to accomplish? And the third question, the how will your evaluation results, remember the decision-making part of it, how will they be used? Those would be the 3 elements. I'll show you now a little bit of some of the evaluation toolkit that we have at our disposal. This is probably more controversial in terms of how I feel about evaluation in theory. There's lots of different frameworks and approaches and names and schools of thought in evaluation. But I would say, rather than endorsing one single approach, we always think context matters more. So context will dictate which tool, which framework, which approach is the most desirable or feasible in a certain particular evaluation. So I'm just listing here some of the things that NEC is currently thinking of using or promoting within the network. We use a lot of surveys. That's probably what we are the best known for. But we engage in focus groups and in-depth participant interviews. We believe in the value of observational studies and usability tests. And in particular, me as a person, Verónica as an evaluator, I will tell you that I think that often we forget to leverage the value of admin records and available federal, local, and internal databases. I think that sometimes we replicate data collection processes, and in a sense, because we don't do our due diligence of researching what is already out there, and I think that's a mistake. I don't think we should be repeating workflows or trying to replicate data collection processes when federal agencies with a lot more manpower and staff and resources at their disposal are already collecting that data. So in general, as an evaluator, I try to see what is already out there and see how that can complement my needs, so that you do not create burden, evaluation burden or survey burden or in the participant burden, interview burden on your population that is being evaluated. As a practice, as you've heard me say, I'll just restate it again. We believe that mixed methods approach tends to be better than focusing and choosing on just a single type of method or tool. And I do believe that this is a best practice. So how does everything that I've told you up to here relate back to NEC? What does it look on a day-to-day basis? Well, we have three main areas, as I told you, right? We had 4 aims, but 3 main areas of action. So we've created and we are creating evaluation infrastructure consistently. The reason I say we are still creating is, like I told you, we believe in continuous improvement. So sometimes you make choices about particular survey platforms or about particular workflows that you see whilst using them, that they are not the best for the setting that you have them currently in use. So things that you may have used in the past may not be useful today. That's something that you need to, in evaluation, be willing to accept, acknowledge, and move from. So we try not to be completely dependent on one particular system, and that's why we're always thinking of ways to make our systems communicate. And like I told you, no single system exists for anything. There's no magical software platform or platform to serve all the needs that you're going to have. So that's why we keep on doing this. The second area that we're consistently working on are ongoing things that started in the first year of our grant and new initiatives. And again, the human part, the human connection of the network. So what does this look like? We have a series of things that we work on, for instance, like the infrastructure. So we have a data warehouse that NEC has the mandate to create for the NNLM. And this is like a data repository where ongoing data requests can be supported, they can be mapped, and an inventory of the network's data collection happens and is connected to the interface that we use for our data reporting purposes. So one of the things that the NNLM has is that there's other offices that control different parts of these processes, right? So the data reporting processes for the NNLM happens through our partners and friends at NEC, which is the National Web Services Office, which is housed by Maryland, the University of Maryland, and they take care of the interface through which our network friends introduce all their data reporting. So NEC works very collaboratively with NEC in this data warehouse, even though we only control bits and pieces of the process, right? They're sent somewhere else. We've started creating Tableau dashboards to work as a self-serve data visualizations with data that our network partners use and produce themselves, and we just give them a visualization that hopefully is making it easier for them to understand how their trainings are going, what people think of their training offers, and this type of thing. And like I've said, we do a lot of survey work. We're getting very close to launching what I think is going to be a staple of NNLM. We're going to survey our member organizations. We'll be trying to understand more what our membership needs are, how they see value and benefit in joining the NNLM, and these are the type of questions that we do. In terms of forms, you've heard me talk a little bit about it. We have reporting mechanisms and things like that we're trying to streamline and identify. We believe in standard vocabularies. What is a member organization? What makes one of the big defining characteristics of the network is that our members are not individuals. Individuals are users of the NNLM, but members are actual organizations, right? And that's a big distinction. So we need to have standard vocabularies that people who look into the NNLM can always grasp the difference between a user of the NNLM and a member organization of the NNLM. And then we do lots of little things, like we do lots of other things. We're creating, we've been engaged in something called a personas project, which is trying to create like templates of representations, of standard representations of traditional users and member organizations of the NNLM. We will be doing some data visualization challenges with our friends from the network and other things like that. So I maybe gave you too much detail about the work that we do on a day-to-day basis, but I just want to end this short presentation by saying keep in touch with NEC. The way that you can work most clearly with us is through your RMLs. So the RML is the first point of touch, but please, there's ways to keep informed about what's happening at the NEC. One would be to go through our website, which is what you see here. This is our website through the nnlm.gov. And then we have a monthly newsletter that I will share with you ways to sign up for it. This is really good in the terms of dissemination of information related to evaluation. So we often do spotlights of people doing interesting evaluation work at the network, or staff member spotlights. We tell you what our experts' profile is and what they're doing. We are always happy to spotlight you if you guys have you're doing any project or initiative that you would want NEC to spotlight for you, so that the entire NNLM or whomever is our readership, right? Whomever is our readership within the NNLM, we send it across the entire network. But I don't know how many people actually click on it and read it. But we send out information this way, and if you're willing to share some information, we would love to have you. We would love to talk more about any initiative and program that you think would benefit from publicity within the NNLM network, and we're happy to do that for you. And then we have our email. Please, I'll share this with you so you can have it and send us information. And we do have a Twitter account, and everything that you see here is pushed through our Twitter account. So if you want to keep on being thinking about what we do, and you like some of the stuff that I said here, please use these venues to connect and communicate with us. We always want to hear from you. And I'm going to stop present. I have discussion questions that I have for you, but I'll stop and see if you want to. Well, I'll show you the things that I was thinking we could talk about, but I'm more than happy to hear what you have. So I wanted to hear more about what kind of evaluation you are doing in your places of employment, and what you think are good community and collaboration opportunities with health science librarians and the NEC. So it was just very simple. Now I'm going to try to stop. Oh, sorry. I'm going to try to stop sharing my screen and look at you to engage in a more lively discussion, hopefully. Can you all see me still? Okay.
I do. If people want to put on their cameras, go for it.
Thank you.
And there were not any questions in the chat, so let's go ahead with the questions that Veronica gave us. What sort of evaluations are you doing? Let's hear what people are working on. What kind of evaluation do you do within your organization?
Oh, thank you. And I'm catching up on the chat. Yes, Sarah Gonzalez, I have to say, and I know she presented the Personas project. I know that you saw the Personas on the poster, and I was so happy to hear that that it went well. She was very excited. And Sarah's amazing.
I don't feel like I do a lot of evaluation in my work. I report numbers. I track numbers of requests and articles and resources delivered and searches. I have had in the back of my mind, and as a way of showing value, potentially trying to put a survey when I send out a lit search, or a week later, to do something that would have people respond on time saved, or did they really use the resources? Did it make a difference in patient care? I have not put something like that together yet.
So Francis, tell me a little bit more, again, sorry about that, but tell me a little bit more about the metrics that you do collect. How do you collect them? How do you phrase the word to get the number that you're looking for? And how did you think about that being, so was it mandated to you? Was there someone telling you? Because I saw that you really like the quote that I also really like about values driving what your data you're collecting. Have you been able to engage in that type of more meaningful creation of metrics?
No, I have not.
No, that's okay.
That really stood out to me about, before I start diving into other things, I should think about values first, and then metrics, rather than putting the cart before the horse. I was not given any mandate. When I arrived, the previous librarian had retired, and the person who was managing had started a spreadsheet, and so I have simply continued that. And I do an annual report to my manager with, simply tables. Here were last year's numbers, here were this year's numbers, here are some of the standout things, projects that I felt like really had an impact, or that I later saw put into place. And it was nice when we got a new VP in, and who came around and met with everyone. When she came to visit with me and I showed her the spreadsheet, she was like, "Oh, it's nice to know somebody tracks something here." So yeah, I've often thought, well, it is strictly just a number. I just keep a spreadsheet, and I delivered 15 articles to this person on this topic, and I sent 3, sort of FYIs based on things I know people are interested in, or I, fulfilled this lit search request for this person. I track what their discipline is. So are they a nurse? Are they an administrator? Are they a physician? If they tell me what their request was it for patient care? Was it for more of a long-term project, kind of a program development or something? And then, I don't track time. I just track sort of output, how many PubMed citations I sent, how many CINAHL citations. I mean, it's just very basic. And again, I've never had pushback one way or the other about, you're not doing enough, or you're not doing the right things. But I have felt it was important to at least have something to back up what I do all day.
I think that's brilliant.
I only see my boss.
Brilliant. And I don't want to put you in the spot right now, but I think you're doing exactly. So we all, I think, like I said at the beginning a little bit, and you heard me, I'm very honest about this. I think that evaluation in theory says one thing and in practice is another. So we all strive to have our metrics be value-based and value imbued, right? The reality is we are often just dropped into projects where there's already lots of other data collection processes happening, and you were just dropped into a position, into a new place of employment where you're just gathering because everyone has been doing it. So, right, that you just go with the flow, and that's perfectly fine, and it happens to all of us all the time. So that's evaluation in practice in a day-to-day basis. I think that, and the point that we wanted to make is that's super valuable, and it continues to be valuable. But I think for me as an evaluator, if I give advice to myself, is let's also think about why we are collecting these metrics and if it's useful today, because like I told you, context and the timing of the evaluation matters a lot. Maybe this was useful 10 years ago, or maybe a month ago. But then the pandemic, again, think about the pandemic and how much that reshaped our understanding of everything, right? We had assumed that meetings had to be in person. And look at us now, right? I'm in San Diego, like you said, you're all in different places. And we're having a conversation that maybe 3 years ago would have been like not possible, right? Because none of us would have thought that this could be happening. So that's, don't feel bad. What I don't want you is to feel bad for everything that you're already collecting. There may be the right metrics and they may continue to be the right metrics. What I would just encourage everyone to do, and encourage, like I tell you, I tell this to myself as well, how useful is this to me now? And what do I want to get from it in the future? Because you mentioned a word that we love to use in evaluation and that we have never really defined because you cannot have a general definition, and that's impact. Impact looks very different in very different settings, right? And even though I'm an evaluator, I cannot in 2 minutes talking say whether the metrics that you're collecting are impactful for your program or not, right? You are the subject matter expert because you know your program and you know these things. So this is part of the collaboration between an evaluator and the people doing the actual work. Sometimes the evaluator will try to be more objective and distance itself from the subject, but at the same time, we do not know the subject very well. So you guys know. So you tell us what matters to you and what be useful to you. And we can help you create metrics, but we need your knowledge, and that's what you bring. So this is why it should be a partnership and a collaboration.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Somebody's got a hand up here.
It's me. I wanted to touch on what Francis said and Veronica. I think Francis is doing a really good job of tracking those lit searches. I was hospital librarian and I didn't. I was solo librarian, and the college was the management, and they wanted to track how many people were physically going into that space. So I was having to check off, okay, 2 students today, 2 physicians, 2 nurses type of thing, because they needed to keep that space. And so I was just doing what I was told. I was not tracking lit searches, faxes, phone calls, emails. So I needed to do that for myself. So you talk about context and timing. That worked for the college. They really needed that for the context. They needed to know who was going in that space. For me, it would have been important to do what Francis is doing, is really keep track of those lit searches, even just marking off. I put it on my evaluation. I'd send an email every now and then. I'm doing a lot of lit searches, but that wasn't going to be enough. So I can really understand where you're going with this conversation. Oh, and I also wanted to say one type of evaluation I did do, though, is I got the grant for the Native Voices, Native Peoples, the traveling exhibit. So I had the traveling exhibit, and we sent out a Sea Monkey evaluation afterwards. So Sea Monkey is a real easy way to send out an evaluation online. So I believe it's sent out through email, and then people just click a link and they can just click the answers. So for the Native Voices exhibit, we sent out that evaluation to faculty and I think students too, and got some perspective on their experiences with that exhibit, the traveling exhibit.
I love what you're saying, Elizabeth, and I hear you when you say that sometimes there's lots of things that can be quantified that maybe we shouldn't be quantifying. So and Francis also touched on that. So do we always need to be tracking time? Is time always going to be a metric of usefulness for something? I think that there's also, okay, this is going to, again, I'm into controversies today apparently, but not everything needs to be quantified. That's something that I definitely believe. That I think it's more meaningful to be very consciously mindful of what you're tracking than rather just track because other people are doing it or because they tell you or because so what you said, Elizabeth, resonated with me. It may be a metric may be valuable for a college, but not for you. And that's perfectly okay. And that's why I was asking Francis, were you mandated to track certain things? Because sometimes even if we don't find it useful, we have to do so, right? So there's going to be areas where you have to track even if the actual metric is not useful for you because someone else is going to use it. But I think the let's focus and be consciously considering each of the value of the metrics is useful in the longer run, because you're going to be going to the same people for data, and people get burdened with data calls and with surveys and with interview calls and with all of this. So the more we make it like, let's identify the synergies and the points of contact between metrics, so that we know that we're really just asking for the things that we need. This goes back to the idea that I was telling, that I'm pushing hard now to look, I'm pushing myself hard to look for admin records and for databases that already exist, because duplicating or triplicating, quadrupling work happens very often, and people get exhausted by it. People do not want another survey about the exact same thing that they responded 2 days ago. So that's the problem with evaluators, that we get very excited, as you can see me, about collecting data, but that often we forget that we cannot be always quantifying everything.
Thank you. Anybody else, please speak up.
Hi. My library doesn't, we do track time for our systematic review processes. We do not do lit reviews or systematic reviews without a promise of a writing credit, unless it's a very superficial thing that we do. But while I do not take part in the lit reviews beyond, I'm sort of the grammar queen, so I'll catch all the British spellings for things so that we can make sure and get all the keywords and mesh terms that we need. But we track everything in Airtable, and they that way it's a live spreadsheet or Trello board, depending on which one of us has it open, and we can say we spent 20 minutes on this day working on this thing. And the reason that we do track time is because we want to better build timelines for the faculty, so that they know so that we'll be able to sort of create predictive timelines for what aspects of the systematic review will be done when. So like, we'll have the search ready in 6 weeks, we'll have the actual searches run another 4 weeks from that sort of thing. But we don't evaluate them. That is up to the faculty, because none of our librarians are trained in anything other than health administration. We don't know enough about their topics, often which are new trends, to be able to say with accuracy that a systematic review or that these articles that we've produced for your systematic review are what you need. So it's very much a push and pull with the faculty. So we're trying to document as much as possible to make sure that we're like, these are the things we are doing, this is how long it will take, and that is all.
But that sounds like a good use. I mean, you're tracking the time because it's helping set up that timeline. So that sounds like it's echoing what Veronica said about you're collecting it because it does have a value or a use. You're not just collecting it because it's an easy thing to collect or something, you know. That context is dictating the reason for the collection of data.
We collect lots of data on everything for the space conservation. That's separate, because we have the largest space on campus other than the research park, and we want to keep all of the space that we have for the students. So we do space counts every day, 4 times a day, where we count how many students are in the library at any given time. So data is fun.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I hear you. I love data.
I'll briefly mention some things that have been happening here at Booth Library at Eastern Illinois University. For decades, we mostly had focused on numbers and quantifying, you know, how many people used the building, how many books were checked out. And within the last 5 years or so, we've, you know, come more to the realization that a lot of those numbers we can get out of systems that already exist. So we can query the catalog for, or not the catalog, but we can query the integrated library system for checkout numbers. We can check the gate count. We can do a little bit of math and figure out a lot of things about what usage patterns that can be demonstrated with numbers look like. And we've been focusing more of our efforts lately on the quantitative stuff, or sorry, the qualitative stuff about why people are coming to the building, what they find useful. And that's been really illuminating. We had a focus group done last semester with our, primarily it was Black Student Union. I believe there were also some students from the Latino organization on campus to talk about, do you feel welcome? Do you feel represented? What types of things can the library do to make this a better experience for you? And a lot of really great information came out of us for that. We also asked a lot more open-ended questions on our annual survey this year about what's your favorite spot in the library? What's your favorite thing about the library? And learned a lot of stuff that we weren't really expecting, like they really just want to read a sign to see what the new program is coming up. Hardly anybody said, I want to learn about the new things on TikTok about the library. Now everyone said, I want an email or I want to see a poster. So it was very interesting to expand that out and then just go through and kind of do some quick and dirty coding of these free responses to see what people were thinking and feeling instead of, 50 books got checked out this day. So that's how we've been leaning lately.
I love it, Stacy. I think this is music to my ears. I think that the more we force ourselves to be thinking outside the box, right? Because we get into these repetitive things that we are just not able to see anything new. So I love the idea that you went to these associations and said like, okay, you tell me what I should be focusing on. That's brilliant. And it also, you see, this is a human component of evaluation that I love about that. You're forced to look outside of yourself and to see, and just relinquishing that little bit of control. It's wonderful. And I think we need to do it more often because like you said, you are going to imagine things that you had never possibly thought about because you gave that other person, you empower that person to tell you how do they see the library as being meaningful in their life. And I love it. I think that you're doing a great job. And the connection between systems, yes, I honestly, data entry is not meant to be a manual work of humans. We make a lot of mistakes. That's why we have to clean data the whole time because we make a lot of mistakes entering data. The value of having computers that with the power that we have today is that they can do this much better, faster than and better quality than we do. So I do think that creating the connections. Having said that, I am not an IT person, so the IT people would probably kill me because I'm saying these things, and they will say that it's impossible to do this. But computers are calculators, right? So they should be able to do their thing in the back end, and for us to get like cleaner data. I mean, I was Chelsea before who said she loves data. I love data too, but I've yet to meet someone who says that cleaning data is their passion. We all spend most of our time doing that, right? But that's because there's still a lot of human elements in the data entry part. But I loved it, Stacey. I'm so glad that you're doing this. And mixed methods are the way to go, mixing and blending.
Some great discussion here. Anybody else want to jump in?
Can I just ask, Stacy, did you guys use that information? Did you make changes? Were you able to?
It was more about redirecting where effort was going. So we, after those results came in, we had a meeting with our social media team because there'd been some groups within the faculty, the library faculty that were like, oh, I think we should start a TikTok because it's the new hot thing. And then we saw the responses where everybody was like, I just want an email. And then we talked to the campus social media person and they said, we're not even investing time in TikTok. Here's what we see when we look at a breakdown of social media use, and really reevaluated, what types of messaging went to what platforms. Where are we reaching faculty? Where are we reaching students? Where do we want to concentrate which messages based on what we were seeing back from that question on the survey? I think it was something very open-ended, like how do you like to learn about events in the library? And this was an online survey that we did through Qualtrics. We got permission from campus to mail it out to all students, faculty, and staff. We had really good civil service staff participation. So one of the other unintended things that we learned was the staff loan periods in the catalog had never been configured correctly when the new system came up 2 years ago. There were many complaints about the shortness of time that videos could be checked out, and that clued us into the fact that there was a misconfiguration. No one had ever actually made that statement out loud until that survey went out. So if you don't ask, you don't know. They were just quietly dealing with 3 days instead of 2 weeks until that survey went out. So asking a lot of people and asking open-ended questions and doing it in a way that sparks them to respond with something. I think we spent about 2 weeks kicking that around within the committee, trying to figure out what would elicit a response, because just having that big box that says comments, no one wants to think that hard. If you give them something that's a little prompt, you know, the what's your favorite place in the library, we got tons of responses on that, of people writing about different areas that there were favorites. And that helped inform our discussions about furniture and arrangements and things, because it was pretty split between the people that really loved the quiet personal spaces that were out of the way and the people that loved the group environments where they could sit down and work as a group. And it did refocus some of our efforts more towards the private individual areas, because we'd been putting a lot of effort and time into groups and kind of ignoring the people that just wanted a quiet, out of the way corner where they wouldn't be bothered. So using that feedback and that, you know, on a little bubble scale or whatever, it's really hard to get at what do you prefer in your space in the library. But if they just give you 2 sentences talking about their favorite space, you can infer a lot about how space is being used.
So we didn't get too much to the second question, and I was just going to ask what might be some best practices for making that connection between users and members from the NEC viewpoint. I've been kind of really thinking about some of our posters and NEC and NNLM activities, and yet sometimes our users surprise us. We didn't anticipate who they were, what they wanted or whatever, and how do we make that connection in a best practices? Or the posters, a number of people are kind of studying similar things. How do we get them to collaborate?
I think that's a great question, and it's a pending assignment. I think you're absolutely hitting it in the spot. I think NNLM thinks as a network that we need to think more about that. My hope is that with this membership survey that we're about to launch, we'll get information about the member organizations. And once we have data, we currently do not have good data on that. Once we get data on our member organizations, we can start thinking about figuring out how to engage with our users. Probably, we need to think about that. I think that's a step 2 in the list of pending assignments. But I first think NEC will be focused for the next couple of months very heavily on the membership organizations. But I think this is a great. I'm keeping this in my to-do list for the future. I think we need to think more about ways to engage with that. So point taken, jotting it down. I won't forget.
And I think we are about out of time. Gosh, Veronica, thank you for this information and sparking such a lively discussion here. It was great to hear from you, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you and working with you in the National Evaluation Center in the future. Really appreciate you taking the time to come visit with us today. Be safe this weekend with the weather. Hope it all settles down soon.
Thank you so much, Francis, and everyone. Thank you for a great opportunity. And please remember to be in touch with NEC. I'll share information so that you can keep in line and look for us on Twitter so that you can see what we're doing and come play with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.